Hello there, my name is Kuma, and when I started playing Arknights, I knew nothing about this game other than it was a tower defense. So I asked you guys, what is the one thing you wish you knew before you started playing? Let's see what you said. I wish I knew to not spend my OP on sanity refills. Oh boy, what a start! Because I personally have no regrets when it comes down to my origin. When I started playing the game, I was playing the game. I refreshed at least 10 times a day in my first week, all on top of the normal refreshes you get from leveling up. And I never ran into issues with it. I am not 100% free to play, that is not a secret. But the handful of monthlies I bought, if I count both the OP and the random they gave me, everything together doesn't even add up to my current random count. And that's ignoring all this OP that I have as well. So I guess this really depends on how much you interact with the gacha and the skins as well, how many skins you buy. Because in my case, it was totally worth it, doing those refreshes I mean. Because I really just wanted to play the game, and that's what I did. But this is certainly a topic that is worth talking about if you have a friend who is new to the game. Just get them to understand their priorities, you know? Get them to understand what they want from the game, where do they want to spend. Cause it's really gonna depend from player to player. Next message. I wish I knew Arknights doesn't play like a stereotypical tower defense, where you're forced to have basic checks for all the important things on every lane, since each lane usually has only 1 to 3 types of enemies going through it, which can be countered with way less. You know, this is actually funny, because it never occurred to me, this design difference in Arknights, even though I have also played a lot of tower defense games before. But yeah, if you try to deploy a caster, a sniper, a defender, and a medic on every blue box on a map with 3 blue boxes or more, you simply can't. You just don't have the deploy limit, right? It's literally impossible. So you need some strategy on your operator choice, where you are deploying them to not waste these deployments. Because let's say for example, in Gencraft, a tower defense that is coming to my mind right now, sometimes you have multiple spawning points in that game as well, and it can be in your best interest to build different towers in different areas of the map. But you're not dead simply because you made a tower on the wrong spot, which can be the case in Arknights, especially early on when you barely even have anything built. So yeah, I never thought about it, but it is true. And speaking of building operators, looks like we have 2 messages here about this. I wish I knew that you should raise all the 3 stars first, because they're awesome. And I wish I knew that 3 stars and 4 stars are just as viable as 5 stars and 6 stars, and are generally 2 times cheaper to level up. You guys know this, I am a 4-star player. And I believe that raising some of these cheaper operators, getting your E2 real quick at the beginning of the game, opens up so much more fun for you to have with the game. I wasn't a 4-star player when I started, of course, I barely even knew the difference between rarities to be honest, but I raised my Gumu to E2 in the first couple days playing Arknights. And I have friends who had to play for over a month before leveling their first 6-star. Because of that, we had completely different experiences with the start of the game. But I'll be real with you, I wouldn't tell myself to raise the 3 stars. In fact, half of my 3 stars are still level 0 in my account. Simply because I do not like the idea of a character who I cannot fully level up and play with them fully maxed. I will never be able to give masteries to Cruz or any of the other 3 stars. Even if I did give these masters to the 5-star version of them, it's just not the same. I still have this sad 3-star who I am simply incapable of raising like all the others, because they don't have any 2. And I think this wish really depends on who you are again. It really varies from person to person. We have players who are here just for some fun, they don't even know if they will play the game for a long time. Some players are here because they saw a cute waifu and they really just want to play with them. You have players who treat Arknights or any other game as if it was the stock market. They say that you have to invest your resources properly. and they think that any operator that you raise that is not max rarity is just a waste of resources. So for sure, this is important to talk about with your newbie friend. Let them know that you can beat the game with anything you want, and then they can decide by themselves what they want to do. Oh man, I wish my friends didn't tell me Matoimaru was bad and I should raise Melanta instead. Now I have to live with my Melanta at E1. Next message. I wish I learned how to actually play the game besides just using brute force and getting used to it, until I S-dropped it by making my life a hell. But at least that made me learn to actually play the game. Yeah, that's amazing. And it is also funny, because it's true. Since release, Arknights always had operators meant to make the game an easy experience. And I don't have anything against that, just to be clear. It's fine to have operators that make the game easy. But sometimes you don't even realize that you are not learning what the stages are trying to teach you. And when you are tasked with using these mechanics you didn't learn in events that bring back past mechanics, or just using the basic mechanics of the Arknights gameplay, then you will end up getting stuck. I have friends with accounts infinitely stronger than mine. They have 10 times as many 6 stars built as I have, but they can't clear the boss stages in events without a guide. I have multiple of those friends, by the way. It's not only you, I know you're all listening. And this is only a problem because they wish they could clear these stages by themselves. They wish they could use their favorite characters to play the game, but they can't because their basic understanding of how the game works is not yet fully developed. It's a really sad thing to see. But to be honest, I don't think this is something you can realistically convey to a new player. You will sound like a crazy dude preaching the apocalypse if you tell someone they should learn what 0-11 is trying to teach them. Can you imagine? And also, there's people who just don't care, you know. They are here just for the gacha anyways, so that's also a completely different possibility. But yeah, I hope you are good at the game now. And if not, I hope you get good. Next message. I wish I knew that you seriously need to save up pulls if you want a specific operator. I got lucky once or twice as a somewhat newbie, but I'm not keen on relying on luck to save me on Logo's banner. If it's not a soul who has made a full recovery from the luck addiction. I jest, but for real, we know that it's super easy to get a 6 star in Arknights. But if you really want someone in specific, you can't leave it for luck. The chances of getting who you want are far lower than just getting a random 6 star. So if you see a new release in CN and you're like, this is the moment I live it for, I need this operator, then you should consider if the banners down the line are really worth your pulls. Not just to get more powerful operators, but which of them do you really like and want to have fun playing with, you know? Hard questions to ask for sure, but you gotta do it. Or open your wallet, I guess. That is an option for some. Next message. I wish I knew that Catapult's skill upgrades did nothing. I will never get those skill books back, and it's all her fault. Oh boy, the poor girl Catapult can't take a break. She is hated for her long line in recruitment, she's hated for her skill that only gets range increase, and she's hated by me for being a 3 star I can't max out and give masteries. But hey, she will get a skin just like all the other 3 stars. But anyway, I really don't know what to say to this. Why did you include this on the list, Ed? Maybe we should teach Yen how to read. That would solve a lot of problems. For example, you wouldn't raise her skill if you knew how to read. But that's impossible, right? We know Yen can't read. Nah, that's just impossible. Next one. I wish I knew that there are a lot of pretty boys in the game, and it's worth raising them all. Summer Flamebringer, anyone? What about Sweaty Broca? Or of course, Summer Ansel. The answer is obvious, all of them. On a more serious note, I wish I knew to complete the main story sooner. During events, you want to spend all your sanity on farming them, and during periods with no events, there are always operators to be upgraded, so you spend sanity on them. When you start the game, you don't worry about all that, and I wish I completed more of the main story during the time. It helps a lot with understanding some event stories, and some materials for newer operators are only available in the latest story chapters. This is one I can't really relate to, because as I said before, I went full addiction mode in my first few days, but I can imagine your pain. I have friends who started on release, they actively play the game, they even try challenges in low rarity, but they never finished the main story chapters. So it's super funny when I tell them, try this against Alola or something like that, and they go like, why don't we try something else instead? It's great, I lose it every time. For a new player, it can really be a hassle sometimes, especially if you need the chapter 13 material, which I don't remember what material it is, but I know there is one in chapter 13. Because before then, all new chapters that brought new materials, they also brought new stages that were added in the opening chapters of each arc, so you would be able to farm them without having to progress through 4 or 5 chapters. Of course with a lower drop rate, but still it was quite helpful. You can check them in game, chapter 4 and chapter 9 have stages with the materials of the chapters that came after. But it really is a bummer. The chapter 13 situation, I mean. I wonder why they decided to do things like that, or for that chapter specifically. I wonder why they changed their minds. But on the lore, since you touched on that as well, I'm not sure how much the side stories relate to the main chapters. Of course we are in the middle of Babel right now, this one has a lot of info related to the main story, but I'm not sure if that's the norm, especially because Arknights has this writing style of jumping everywhere all the time. You go to the future, to the past, to the other side of the world, it's all over the place. If you read things out of order, you don't really miss anything, you just experience things in a different way. Either way, the game is fun. Play it, and come back for the hell stages too, don't leave them behind forever like my friends do. You gotta do the hell stages, they are fun. Next message. I wish I knew how events work, because I literally started during Ling event and I didn't even play it. This one is a bit related to the last comment, right? They were saying you don't care about the events at the beginning, so you should finish the story. These days though, it's hard to do both at the same time. Play the new events and progress through the story. After all, we haven't had a real dead week in so long. But it certainly happens a lot that players don't realize events are there, or how they are supposed to work. And you know that event shops give a lot of resources, they are the best way to get a lot of stuff. It's a weird situation for new players these days. They gotta go out, get the stages for the materials they need that are not in the event shop. And they run the risk of not even realizing what the event is, and that a shop exists. You could say that it's so obvious, how could anyone miss the event? It's on the home screen. But for real though, there is no such thing as a perfect UI. When you're new, anything on screen could mean the world or be absolutely meaningless. And even if you find your way to the event page, you'll still have to decipher if anything on that screen has any meaning. Arknights give us pretty art, that's true, but whoever is in charge of their user experience, they need help, and they need a lot of it. Next message. I wish I knew the difficulty will ramp up to give the players more challenging content. Oh my fellow internet person, you sound like you had a really boring start with the game, which is understandable. The Arknights tutorial takes hours to get through, the first 2 chapters are tutorial, and nothing really happens in there. But at least it sounds like you had some fun after you progressed, which is really nice, I'm happy for you. I don't think there is much we can do as a community to help a new player who isn't vibing with the game because it's too easy. Creating an engaging experience in the first couple hours of the game is really important for game designers and devs. Because if the game is boring, it doesn't matter how great it becomes later, most players won't get there, they will simply stop playing. Unfortunately, the tutorial we have in Arknights is not very compelling, but it is the tutorial we have to live with now. And the players we lose to it, I don't think I could do anything about. It's a hypergrief problem. And let's be realistic here, Arknights has a lot of challenge to it. It always had. but it also always had operators who can easily answer anything the game throws at you without any effort. So from my perspective at least, this is a much bigger discussion that I am not gonna dive into. I learned that you guys don't want to hear about it. So instead, let's talk about the mystery enemy! The mystery enemy from last video was a generic elite defender. Specifically, these stats are both from the Herculean Prisoner and the Heavy Defender type S, but you will find enemies with very similar stats across most events in the game. They are there to ask if you are sure you want to play with only marksman snipers, and they are something you should always expect to see. As for the mystery enemy in this video, why don't we try a boss this time? Should be a simple one as well. Tell me in the comments who do you think this is, and let's go back to your wishes. I wish I knew the importance of the base, and to not upgrade the office to level 3. Would you look at that? This one is a weird topic for me. More because of the experience my friends had than my experience alone. The base upgrades, they are important, they are very important. Just leveling everything up makes a big difference, you make a lot of resources. But there's a lot of people who swear by a 252 base, with only 2 power plants, without the upgrades on the office and reception room, or however it's supposed to work. I don't actually know which one specifically affects what. But I have also seen countless players with a 252 base who can't even produce what I produce in my basic base, 243, which I use mostly generic skills on the operators, and I change everyone only once a day. So I know you can produce more stuff if you do things properly, or do things optimally I should say. If you want to have what I call the ugly base, because you're missing so many upgrades, your base looks super ugly, you need to actually get it done all the way through. Get those base combos going and get to know your base, because otherwise, you're wasting resources just the same, and you have an ugly base on top of that. So what I usually do when a newbie asks me about this topic, I just tell them to not upgrade the right side of the base before they need to do it, or before they understand the base more. Because I am not going to waste 4 hours of my life teaching them how the base works. It's just not worth it. And also I don't want them coming back to me and saying I screwed them up. So that's what I tell them. And also, do you lose on refreshes if you leave your office at level 1? Because I did a recruitment session pulling 1000 in one go, which I analyzed the data of. And I also analyzed the data of 2 years of recruitment that I did and noted down, which this one has a video by the way, I'll leave it in the card. And I got the comparison showing that refreshes, they matter a lot to how many yellow certs you can get. So something else for you guys to think about there, if you have a 252 base. I'm not saying the ugly base is bad, I'm just asking if you're not losing refreshes on the recruitment by leaving the office at level 1. What I am saying though, is that the ugly base is ugly. That I am saying with all the words. Next message. I wish I knew the basic way of doing a stage. Vanguards first, then remove Vanguards and put down lane holder, or defenders and some ranged attackers. Then medics. Or Vanguards into ranged operators and to melee operators to tank ranged attacks. Man, learning what each class does, and even more than that, what each branch of operator does, is really important if you want to have a smooth experience with Arknights. But I would never go as far as devising a flowchart like you did. I'm sure it works for you, and learning it sooner would be a great experience for you, I have no doubt of that. But now I'm trying to think what would happen to me if I did things like that. How could I even play integrated strategies? It would literally be impossible, right? Even more for me who plays all the squads to get the stamps. And what if I don't have a lane holder I like at the beginning of the game? You know, Arknights has a lot of variety, you can make anything sensible work, you just need to understand the basics. A lot of stages don't even need a Vanguard, especially if you like using brawlers. Maybe you want to bunch chargers together with brawlers too, I don't know. And your DP, how much DP you actually need, will change a lot depending on the operators you like to play with. If you like playing with Juggernauts, for example, you're gonna need a bunch of DP. And it's the same for many other classes and for cheaper classes as well. Maybe if you really like Marksman, you don't need that much DP, I don't know. There is so much individual expression that Arknights allows you to have in all its stages that I honestly can't see myself playing with a flowchart. Maybe each player could have their own flowchart and it would be nice to get to that point to understand how you actually like to play. But I'm not gonna lie, deploying the Vanguard first is something that most people do, me included. Most of the time I'm playing with a Vanguard even if it's not Myrtle, because, you know, I'm not a big fan of her. So there's certainly something to take from your wish. But again, I think understanding the classes and what the branches do, that is the actual important part, not so much what to deploy when. Next one. I wish I knew about the free operators, both in the Red Start shop and the side story bar. You can get from playing the game normally. Oh, for sure. Realizing the welfares exist is so nice. That first time you get someone for free, you're like super happy. Well, at least I was when I bought Ethan from the voucher shop. A new player these days has a lot of options they can choose from. The operators in the archive, they are super cheap to get. In the side story, you don't even have to finish the event to get the welfare. And of course we have the voucher shop that we've been talking about. There's a bunch of operators there for you to choose. And you can naturally get vouchers for completing the first couple annihilations and just doing weekly missions in general. And I know there is a very strong and very negative feeling towards the voucher shop operators, but hey, we don't need to place our complaints into the new players. We can let them decide what they want to do, right? They can create their own opinions about it. And then later on, if they agree with our ideas, then we can join in. Or if we end up not thinking alike, we can have a civilized discussion about this game we like so much, like human beings are supposedly capable of doing. Ain't that amazing? As we talked in the other comment, the UI doesn't really help you with finding this kind of stuff. So it's certainly something nice to tell new players. Just look, we have these free operators that you can get, just go have a look at them. You know, just at least let them have a look at the faces of the operators, the faces of the welfares. Who knows? They might become a simp on the spot. And they can be happy that the operator they like is right there, for free. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed our talk, and tell me in the comments what do you think about the wishes we saw today. I hope everyone has a very nice day. Peace out!